actually had the pleasure of meeting Maya before when she did a webinar, and I attended that webinar. I found out about it through Tom, and I
Yes.
attended the webinar, and I
Yes.
got to hear about the work that you do with students. Tom and I are both so excited to finally have you here so that we can share what you do with our families, because I think it's a brilliant business model that you have, and I think it's an underserved population that you take care of.
That's right. So I'm Maya Anderson. I am an independent academic life coach. I come from 20 plus years of on campus higher education experience. So I have the privilege of the perspective of being behind the desk on multiple campuses. And why that is relevant is because when I'm conversing with students and when I'm having conversations with families, etc., I'm not giving the perspective of somebody who has heard about it or life coaching or that sort of thing. I'm actually giving the perspective of somebody who has sat in the chair, had the conversations with students, and genuinely gets how that the system of higher education is a second language that nobody speaks unless you truly have spent time on campus. And there's the wild assumption that students arrive knowing that second language. And because they don't know that second language, they are unsure and they don't speak up.
I love that.
That's
I did not know that second language. I did not understand when I got to college what 101 meant.
no. Okay. So, Christine, do you know what is really funny is that when I taught the first year, like your first year, first semester, welcome to college class, there is actually information in the subject code, which are the letters of the course, and the number that we don't ever tell students. And when you explain what those two things mean, it is literally like you have given these kids like the the keys to the kingdom, because when you say, okay, that subject code is XYZ, this is what it means, this is what it infers, so on and so forth, and then the number means X, Y, and Z, it's like they genuinely are like, oh, I'm the smartest person on campus. Why do we assume that students know why a literature course may start with something that has nothing that's LIT or read or any of those things? Why do we assume that they're going to figure that out just because the course number starts with a 1, 2, 3, or 4, that they know why it starts with that? Because sometimes that's an indicator that it's a first year course, second year course, etc., but not always. It can mean a variety of things. It's simple, like really basic things like that, that when students know that, it is profoundly empowering for them. It's the thing that makes them feel like, wait a minute, I know something that my peers don't. That's really empowering.
What happens for the individual who doesn't figure that out?
I have a student that went to a very large public school that is part of the Big Ten Conference. And because it is a very, very large campus, when you register, you don't have to get a code to register for classes. But what you do have to do is you have to send the classes you're planning to take to your advisor in an email, like via a form. And in theory, they're going to look it over and give you the okay. So I have a student, first year, gets his predetermined schedule sent to him. And because this student was a club student athlete, one of the classes had a conflict. And so I say, ask your advisor about taking a history class. The student went and looked through classes that were history classes and found a history class that was topical, but also interesting to the student. And so they, of course, were like, I should take this class. And then put it on their schedule and sent it through the online form, and the advisor approved it. Because there wasn't any prerequisites listed for the class, nor was there any registration catches, this student registered for a majors only topical history course. It was a third-year history course. The student completed the entire course, did all of the coursework, did all of the things, stayed on top of it, did extra work, but honestly did the class, right? And then got a 5 out of 30 on the final because it was an essay final. And the language that he used was not the language a third-year history major would have used. And so the professor gave him 5 points out of 30, which is soul crushing for a kid who that's their first round of finals in college, right? What could have gone wrong? And then I realized, I bet this is a third-year course. So the student goes and meets with the professor, and the professor literally says, you should have never been in this class. Like, who let you in this class? You should have never been in this class. Well, nobody stopped the student. Now, the advisor clearly missed it, and which is understandable because when you have 700 students that you're helping get through the registration process, you're going to miss that kind of thing. And the part I will say that is the most frustrating for me is that I assisted the student with a retroactive drop appeal, because genuinely, you should be able to drop that course. You should not have that F on your transcript because there was no catches. And the assumption was that the student would have known, right? And the appeal was denied. And it's only offered in the fall. So the student had to wait for the next fall to repeat the class. Why are we doing that? It's a big institution. That thing just slips through. And then why are we punishing the student for that? Like,
So,
that's not something the student should be punished for. Go ahead, Tom.
so let's back up.
Mhm.
What student empowered do?
If I had known this was the class that the student had wanted to add, I probably would have caught it. One, I would have probably said like, oh, old, hang on, let me go do a quick deep dive on this class. And I probably would have caught the kid. I don't do academic advising. I want to very clearly state that. That is the role of your academic advisor on your campus, and you should have a relationship with them, and they should be vetting every course you take because their responsibility is to make sure you are completing your requirements to graduate. So I would have caught that. In all honesty, that's something I would have caught. But also in this situation, the student wanted to immediately respond with asking for a grade change. And instead, what I helped the student do was actually articulate an email saying, I'm not really sure what happened. Can I meet with you? Can I look over the exam? And can we figure out what went wrong? Which changes the whole mindset of how the professor is going to feel when they get an email from somebody who didn't pass their class. So that student actually now has the advantage of not being the person who asked for a grade change. They actually have the advantage by something went wrong. Can I look at it? Can we have a conversation?
Can you
And
help me
then
figure this out? Because can you help me is the four most powerful words that a student can use.
yes, Christine, it is, why did I get the grade versus can you help me? it changes everything.
Mhm.
And it's reasonable for the gut response to be, can you change my grade? Like, the can you help me is not the first thing a student is going to think, right? Before he went and met with the professor, we actually talked through the conversation. Like, what are the things that you want to make sure this professor hears? Let's write them down. What's your most pressing question? What is your greatest concern? Let's talk all that through, because there is a misperception that office hours are doctor's appointments. You would only go to your professor's office if something is wrong. And in this situation, that is why you're going. So you already are really uncomfortable about the whole thing because you've never done this before. And that person's a little scary. Let's talk about a plan. Let's create a strategy that you feel confident about. I want you to feel confident about. And also, I want you to know, if this, then what? If the professor says no, then let's take it in stride. Okay, what are my options next?
So as Christine and I help students get in, it sounds like you help students navigate getting through.
Yes,
Can
because
you tell us a little bit about some of the twists and turns that students who are freshmen all the way to maybe even grad students are encountering that you're embracing and trying to help them with?
let's move forward to your second semester. Okay. Big tough thing for students is unlearning the things that made it so they were successful in high school.
Mhm.
Because in high school, the conversation is do the things, do the things, do the things, check the boxes, and therefore by default you are successful. College is almost the complete opposite. College is like, you want to do the thing,
Figure it
you
out.
should probably,
Figure out the thing.
like,
Go
you should
find the
probably
thing.
do it. Like, that's why you're here. You should probably do it. But if you don't do it, I mean, nobody's going to say to you, why didn't you do it? Until it's too late. And so in the second semester, it is easy for students after they've gotten through their first semester to say, you know what? I got it figured out. I got through it. They let me register for classes again. I must be doing it right. And that's not a false assumption. But then as your courses start getting deeper and more complex and having more details and higher expectations and so on and so forth, it's easy to realize I don't actually know how I learn. I don't know what to do with my notes, and I don't even actually know how to take notes because it's a PowerPoint and I can't write fast enough. This is where I have a curriculum that addresses those things. Note taking. First of all, let's talk about why you're taking notes. Let's first talk about that. Like, why are you taking notes? How are you doing it? What is the professor's style? Is there a note-taking style that's going to match how you learn and how the professor is presenting? let's really break down note-taking and become a note-taking pro. Because nobody taught you. They just said take notes. Let's talk about pausing and really evaluating how you learn. Do you learn by doing? Do you learn by listening? How does the learning happen? And then after you get a test back or a quiz back or an essay or anything that has been evaluated and assigned a point value or a grade, what do you do with that information? Do you go through and look at it and note what notes were left for you or what you got wrong? Do you, if it's multiple choice, you go look at the study guide and you look at how you answered it and look and see, okay, it was on the study guide, but it wasn't on the exam. It was on the exam, but not on the study guide. Okay, the study guide, it's easy to then feel frustrated. Well, why did they give me a study guide if it's not all going to be on the exam? Hold on, wait a minute. Do you actually know how to study, not relying on a study guide?
And can you sit down and read what I call it a sweet spot? How long can you sit down and read before you fall asleep? Because whatever that number is, I make my students find that answer in high school, and then they have to add 5-minute increments all through their senior year. Because if you can't read for an hour and a half in college, you're never going to get through all that reading they give you.
No, and
you can listen to everything. You don't have to read it anymore. You buy the audio book and listen to the book.
There's that.
You can learn that way if you're an auditory learner.
You can, but also Christine and Tom, both of what you both said, I'm pointing because you're on either side of me here. But okay, so taking that, actually, there is pieces of that are super critical in college. Okay, so first, let's talk about a study cycle. Don't just sit down and read. First, figure out why you're reading, what you're going to read, and what you need to know about what you're going to read. Second, know how long you can stay engaged. In all reality, 20 minutes is peak learning, and everything after that is when things start dipping off, especially long form reading. Students are not proficient in long form reading anymore because long form reading has gone away.
A lot of high school students have never read an entire book.
No, and also if you also think about this is so being married to somebody that does these things sometimes is really helpful. So the husband, one of the many things he has done in the digital space is web page development. And so there is this term that's called above the fold. And the key is that you want as much content as possible before the person who's reading has to scroll.
That came from newspapers, by the way.
Yes, it is. It's 100% from newspapers. It's why there were headlines and then a bunch of little like teaser boxes, right? Okay, so students primarily read on their phones.
Yeah, or their Kindle.
If we are trying to get above the fold, think about how short that form reading is. It is not long form reading in any way. Textbooks are almost always digital now in K through 12, right? So you're reading on a tablet or a laptop. Once again, that long form reading proficiency is falling away because we're trying to get all the information above the fold. So, Christine, to your point of knowing how long you can read before you fall asleep, that is important. I'm going to add on to that. How long can you read and still have good comprehension?
Yeah.
So read for 20 minutes. And so I have like a study cycle guide. Read for 20 minutes and then write down the stuff that you read and like the key points and the big stuff that jumped out at you. Read for 30 minutes, do the same thing, and watch to see at what point you are losing that comprehension point. That's your sweet spot.
Yeah.
So many schools, they have first year experience programs. They have, those types. And I know most of my comments and questions paint a wide brush.
Go ahead.
But, are you seeing schools reacting as fast as they can to help with students to adjust to reading above the fold, or going to academic support, or understanding that their first marks are the times when it's time to say something needs to happen?
So unfortunately, because those courses tend to be low credit value courses, they're like 1 and 2 credit courses. a perception then is created that it's a meaningless class. And so the student effort and participation tends to be much lower. And because of that, the content has to start dropping to keep the engagement. From where I sit, being somebody who taught that first semester college class at a variety of places, it almost really should be a full year. And the first semester is honestly how you do college.
Mhm.
It's not about, this is academic advising, this is and bringing in somebody from the advising office and bringing in somebody from this office and so on and so forth. Before you bring in all those people from offices, here's an idea. Let's first talk about how all of those services are passive. You are
Right.
not getting interventions anymore until there's a problem. So all of those services are passive. If every single office that came in said, I will not seek you out, then everything shifts.
Mhm.
The assumption is that somebody's going to catch that you are struggling.
Mhm.
I get that this is a numbers game. I get it. I have case managed 700 students. They were not getting the same thing they're getting from me as an independent academic life coach. They're not even close to getting the same thing. There were students that did because they sought me out repeatedly. But as a rule, that's not going to happen because you just can't do that. It is impossible to serve every student well if you are on a large campus and give them the same level of service, resources, and interventions that you are going to get by hiring me. At private schools, they tend to have more of that scaffolding of support, but it still requires the student seeking it out. It is still passive support. So this is not a big school, small schools conversation. This is more of a, do you understand that everything is going to be passive? And
It's a transition. It's a
yes,
transition.
yes. And
And
it's going to be,
it's not just the different offices you were talking about. It's how do I get my laundry clean? Where's lunch going to come from? What about my allergy shots? I got to figure out how to go get those.
so I have a
Well, we call it
student.
don't we? At some point, there's a
Yes.
bit of adulting that has to go on.
Yeah.
No,
But-
there,
But, you know, and Christine and I talk a lot about the whole notion of retention and losing students and the value to a school and their revenue and whatnot. And I mean, I read an article that there is a school, the president, Asperg, I think is the name of the school, Asperg College. I'll send the article to both of you. And it's
yes.
about the president of the school realizing that they've got to step it up to help students stay, to complete, so that they can maintain, you know, their
Because
operation.
it's a small school. It's a small
Yeah.
Midwest school.
Yeah.
And they, unfortunately, those schools are now facing a whole different level of competition because a lot of Midwest states are now allowing 2-year institutions to offer 4-year degrees.
Oh, right.
Whole other
And so there's a whole other conversation. But speaking about retention, it feels safer to complete a 4-year degree at a 2-year campus because the familiarity level is really high.
Well, there's also some stats on community college students, even if they did get an associate's degree, the percentage of them that go on to finish a bachelor's degree are abysmal.
No, it is abysmal. Also, do you know that the average for a 2-year degree is 7 years? This is a whole other systems problem. But really quickly about that familiarity thing. As a first year in college, the familiarity that you built up to over high school that allowed you to have the confidence you grew into by your last year of high school is completely taken away that first year. And that's really uncomfortable. And so I frequently will hear parents say, like, well, my student is really good at self-advocating. They are really good at self-advocating because they grew into it. But now they have to start over in a new place with different systems, with different formats, with all of these things that are different, as well as a ton of competing interests. And they're supposed to tap into self-advocacy. Self-advocacy is not going to be at peak because what they're really tapping into is how do I look like I'm actually okay? Like, how do I not let anybody know that I'm kind of freaking out a little bit?
So tell me what your program looks like. Tell me how you how do you structure this to help students through this?
So ideally how I want to start is I want to start in the summer. Mm-hmm. I want to start with you and your family in the summer. And the reason I want to start in the summer is because there is a component of the family and the student both getting that readiness piece. That readiness, because it does matter as a family and as the people that the student is going to default to, because they will default to you. It does matter that you know the things. And so in my curriculum, I actually have like a full resource for parents on like the language of higher education. Students have the same thing. Depending on the institution, some schools are great and they actually have a like learn the language of your campus. And so that gets added to it. So I have a whole section for families. So in the summer, we go over insights. Like we're going to do like a very, very light, quick and dirty. Here are some key things you want to know. Then I actually have a series of checklists. It's 4 checklists that are like the emotional, the mental, and so on and so forth kind of readiness pieces. If you work with me in the summer, before you go to orientation, we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to have a conversation as quickly as possible after orientation, because students retain 10%-ish of what they hear at orientation. And I want to recap so then you actually have a cheat sheet of all the things they talked about. And then I have supplemental materials. Then we're talking about family communication. We're talking about how it is with your roommate, campus safety beyond what they talk to you at orientation about, understanding your academic calendar. This is a big one that's like nobody thinks about, but your academic calendar, there's actually like there's cycles and things you should be aware of. So for example, the best time to meet with your academic advisor is week 5 to 7. That is truly the best time if you are a semester school, because things have slowed down enough by week 5 and you have not hit the middle of the semester yet at week 7. So mid-semester check-ins, planning for the next semester, all those sorts of things haven't started to fill up. So you're going to get the most time from your advisor in that 2-week space. That is like the sweet spot of attention from your advisor, because once the middle of the semester hits, the panic begins. And so you have the like, I did midterms, I got my mid-semester grades. And so really understanding your academic calendar and how things happen on campus at different weeks. This is something that I wouldn't ever expect a student to know, but it really is relevant. This is like super important information. Then we do a whole conversation about 2 big things. One, course management, which is, I'm going to tell you what your syllabus is. Like, we're going to talk about what a syllabus is, and we're going to talk about why a syllabus is not just dates and deadlines. We're going to actually break it down. Like, we're going to get real clinical about a syllabus. And then I have a cheat sheet for students where they can just have a quick reference for each of their classes. So you don't have to go reread the syllabus every time. And then the other piece that I spend a lot of time on is priority management. I'm not going to talk to you about time management. That's like, time is not a construct when you are 19 years old, when you're 18 years old. Like, that's not a thing. Okay. Time management was actually established and done and so on and so forth by your family unit. It wasn't actually something you did independently. I'm not going to have this expectation you're going to be able to figure it out. But what we are going to do is really learn the process of determining priorities, ranking priorities, assigning times, and critical, like, is it a 1, 2, 3, or 4 to each item? And then it becomes easier for that. I have to do this thing. Hold on. This is going to take 2 hours, and that checklist before each task. So those are two big things that are very much a deviation from the typical, like, getting ready for college conversations, right? There's a lot of like, have you met your roommate? Have you talked about what you're going to pack? Do you think you're going to join a club? There's all that, but we don't ever say like, hey, do you understand that your syllabus is actually like a contract? Nope, you probably don't. And you probably don't really, that doesn't even make sense when I tell you it's like a contract, because you don't know what that means. And that's okay that you don't know what that means. So let's break it down. Those are not your typical, are you ready for college conversations? So that's going to be summer. And then throughout the first semester, I have different tools that we are going to use based on the conversations I'm having with you, based on the semester, and based on what you have expressed your needs are. We're definitely going to talk about note taking. We actually talk about note taking in the summer. And I have the student do some preliminary work on that. And then we're going to revisit it in the first few weeks, because that is, it's like a gateway to all the other parts about learning. And then, like, your tools for success, what better learning, test taking, approaches, strategies, and so on and so forth. Doing things that, like, be kind to your mind. Let's talk about resetting your vagus nerve and why you would do that, because you're going to probably want to do that a lot. Or let's talk about mindfulness. When you are in a shared space for the first time, it's going to be really hard to, like, have a hot minute. Let's talk about, like, where you can practice mindfulness. Can you find little spaces and little pockets on campus to do that? Then, as we're moving along, your first break home. I'm going to prepare your family, and I'm going to prepare you. It's probably, there's going to be a little hiccup. If you have shared with me, when we first start working, I do an hour-and-a-half meeting with the student and their family. And one of the questions I ask is, do you have a significant other that will continue to be your significant other when you're going to college? And are you going to college together? And that sort of thing. We're going to talk about this thing called the turkey drop. It's just kind of like the industry term for the bad breakup that happens. So you go home for Thanksgiving and you potentially see your significant other. And it is just like, oh my gosh, we have like 5 minutes together where we're not on each other's campus. And it's just delightful. And you are just so happy to see each other. And it is all of the things that are very real and legit. And then everybody goes back for 2 or 3 weeks, goes through finals, and then it's winter break. And at the beginning, it's kind of exciting. But then as winter break goes on, there was probably going to be a breakup. And so it doesn't feel good to go back for your second semester with a broken heart. So,
well, number one, you never go to school, you never go to college where your significant other in high school goes. And number two, you break up before you go.
Tom, so much of these things, but also, like, what do we know? What do we know, right? Yes, all of those things I'm not in the position to tell a kid that's what they should do. And you know, the other thing I'm discovering is that a lot of parents like the idea of their kid going to college with a relationship intact because there is this perception that because they have a significant other, their behavior is going to be more restrained.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, it's this false idea that, like, well, my kid is going to college and their significant others either A, going with them or going somewhere else, but their behavior is going to be restrained because what they don't want to do is have complications in their relationship. And that's just a really false perception. Another one that I did not expect, and this is one of those things that has, as technology has improved, become more and more, not getting good sleep because you and your significant other are not at the same campus and you are used to having time with each other into the evenings. And so that doesn't happen. And so what happens are late night phone calls that go into the wee hours of the morning. And especially if one of them is struggling, the default is that the other is going to be the support. And so that is like sleep deprivation is a thing that happens. And you know what? I mean, it means your kid is a good kid because they're trying to support their person, but it also means that the kid has an added responsibility of trying to support their person while they're doing it at the same time. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot. So yeah, I mean, your first winter break, your first holiday break in college, like, let's talk about it. Let's get everybody on the same page. For parents, your kid might come home not at all looking like who they were. Don't panic. It's okay.
I've heard
Yeah.
Tom say to listen for the things that they're not saying.
mm,
That.
It's the nonverbals. I mean, I know for my own children when I would go pick them up, and one we had a 5-hour ride, the other one we had a 2-hour ride. And I write about it. Christine and I have talked about it, and you know about it too. You know, you pick up the kids and you're ready to drill them on everything: academics, social life, work. You know, are you having fun? Yada yada. And they don't want to talk to you for anything. They fall asleep, and that's the best thing actually. So if your kids fall asleep on the way home, let them sleep, and you just ride, because they don't want to talk about it. But you need to get it out at some point.
You do. And it's okay over winter break if your kid comes home and like you don't see him for 3 days. It's okay. Like, I mean, as a parent, I mean, I get this. As a parent, I don't want to wait 3 days to see my kid. I like want to like totally bring them back in, but no, like you got to give them 3 days. And for students, you want to escape for 3 days, and that's reasonable. Here's a wild idea. Loop your family in. Loop them in and say like, hey, I might check out for 3 days. And then I'm all in.
And don't forget to tell the relatives too, because when they come over,
Right?
pounding you anything.
All of the things. Please do not overschedule us. Like that's a big thing I hear in the spring is how was your winter break? It felt overscheduled. That is something that I hear. Like we were really busy. They don't want to be really busy. And also, I'm going to ask for a little of your kids' time over that break because I want to do a recap and a rehash of how the semester went. Because I want us to have some like a little bit of a hard conversation before they go back for the spring. Because if something went well, we're leaning in. Like that is going to become the thing we do. And if something didn't go well, we're going to figure out why. And then we're going to figure out how to turn that into a power versus like a negative. So give me a minute. I'm going to probably want an hour of your kids' time, and that's okay. It's okay for the kids to want to spend time with new people. That's okay.
You have really opened a Pandora's box here. So tell me, like, what are the like listening to all of this, I don't know why you're the first person I've heard of who's an independent academic life coach. And I don't know what are the barriers that you come across with parents, because I can't think of a single reason why every college student shouldn't have one of these.
Amen. Okay, so so there's a few
And I hear the
factors.
choir in the background, they're singing.
Right? No, like seriously, like Christine, I want to like shoot off like fireworks and be
Yeah.
like, yes, yes. Also, this is where when people are like, well, why would I want my kid to have a coach? And I think to myself, like, I can't give you like a 3-minute summary of that, because I'm going to say one thing and you're going to light up and then ask me a bunch of questions, and then it's just going to go on. But
I think you said one thing in the webinar that I heard, which was a lot of times when parents bring their students in for a coach, it's because something went wrong while they were in college. But why not bring in that coach now who can help them lean into, like you were saying, the things that went right first semester and identify, and then the person is already in place and already has a relationship with the student. And so we don't have to build that time in of the student feeling comfortable opening up to you. They're already comfortable with you.
this is why I want to start in the summer. This is genuinely why I want your time over the summer, is because we have to build some camaraderie. And like students, I want you to not think of me as your parent. What I want is I want us to feel like we're equals. And that happens with time, right? Like, you don't meet someone through a screen on your computer and immediately have this sense of confidence and trust. I hope you wouldn't. Like, I would hope that most of us are a little skeptical. And so that is like, there needs to be that establishing a relationship. It is really important for that to happen. But back to the barrier. So there's a few things that I think cause the barrier. So I think the first one is the difference between admissions and completion. It is okay as a family to say, we're going to hire someone to help us with the admissions and cost and all of the pieces about going to college, because we don't understand it. And admissions is complicated, and we're supposed to do the FAFSA, and I don't really know, and how are we going to pay for it, and all of that. It's reasonable to hire someone for that, because as a parent, it's okay to say we don't really get any of that stuff. And full disclosure, I didn't do admissions with my kid. I hired someone. Like, I know how this all works, and I delegated. Like, sir, you're going to go make friends with somebody that I'm going to pay to do this with, because I want us to still like each other through your senior year of high school. So that is actually not an unusual thing. But saying we hired somebody to coach my kid through the first year of college in some way indicates that you don't know how to parent. That as a parent, you are missing something, because you went to college. So why wouldn't you know how to help your kid get through college? So it's this weird little space of, I hired someone to do that with my kid because I want to enjoy my kid as a first year college student, and not as the person who, as Tom said, is peppering them with questions all the time. And so understanding that the reason you hired, or like the benefit of hiring somebody to help you with the admissions process, is that you are able to maintain some really critical pieces of your relationship with your kid. And then you want to keep doing that through the first year. It's just not something that parents and families think like, oh yeah, I would actually like that. So that's one. Two, people don't think of college as a big ticket purchase. So like, why would you buy an extended warranty? No, Tom, I mean,
I like that. Yeah, a warranty.
right?
Yeah.
Like, when you make a big ticket purchase, you do not buy a car. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to go buy a car. Like, it doesn't happen like that, right? There's actually like research, and you shop around, and there's all these things that happen, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where they're like, we would like to sell you an extended warranty. And most of the time people say no, but I guarantee everybody buys the oil change for a year. Okay? Like, there's a reason that dealerships do that, because it is a low cost entry item that then allows you to upsell. Okay? So if you are spending the money to send your kid to college, why are you not putting something in place that is going to level up your ROI?
Because that ROI only comes back if that student graduates. And you're talking about, that's going back to admissions, between admissions and completion. If the student doesn't graduate, you don't get that ROI. You just start spending money on the big ticket item.
Yes, but also another piece, if your student does not graduate, having spent time with real world application of what they believe their major is leading towards a career, hanging out with career services. We haven't even gotten into that part of the awful things I make students do, which is, I can't believe you're making me go to career services.
Yeah, we are going to have you back.
Yeah. But like, that's other components of your ROI, right? Guarantee your investment.
It's a really good point.
So a big question I have is identifying a student, which I personally am confident I can do, but it's getting them across that line, not necessarily the student, because we are talking about the parents as the one who's committed, the one who's, like in our business, is paying us, and we're working with the student and the parents, but getting them both over that line to realize that to get the ROI for their particular student who is in their particular profile, who gives a crap about the neighborhood, we're getting ready to, in the next 3 or 4 months, students are going to be sort of out of our world and staying with us summer, but introducing them. And if we don't have you back right away, the viewing and listening audience as families, but also as independent counselors who we hope are listening to our craziness, they understand the value.
The cost of repeating a course
Mm.
is anywhere from $600 to like $1,700.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was talking to a parent last night, not to interrupt, but they were flabbergasted when I said, the graduation rates that you see posted are based on 6-year rates that are anointed by the government, anointed by the higher ed industry, anointed by everybody, when in fact, we're supposed to graduate in 4 years if we're in a 4-year school, or 2 years if we're in a 2-year school. And every time after that, we're losing money because there's no support unless you're paying out of your own pocket. So, you're preaching to the choir here, but getting kids 4 years.
It's not, okay.
Sorry.
We should stop saying college is a 4-year thing. Like, let's just not. Let's just call it a 5-year thing and get real. Like, let's just be honest so that there's no shell shock, right? I mean,
well, I put my kids on a 3-year plan because they had enough AP and CLEP tests to go in as sophomores. And I didn't think I was being unreasonable.
Yeah, and that works for some students. Like, honestly, Christine, there is a select group of students that really does work for.
But it wouldn't have worked for me as a student because I didn't even know what 101 meant. Like I was a first.
Okay, yes.
And
Yes,
then I
yes.
also want to say too that even if the parents did go to college, not all of my parents that I work with went to college in this country,
Mhm.
and not all of them did go to college. And so
Or when
It's-
you went to college, you did just the things you needed to do to graduate.
at a bare minimum for me.
Yes,
I need to run.
yes.
we are going to have you back.
Yeah. Because
And-
Thank
we
you.
need
I
to
love
talk
it.
about, we need to talk more about the timeline, identifying the student that needs your support and assistance, and getting that out there.
I love it. And yeah, let me know. We can do this again. Pick a topic.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. Thank you so much.
I love the boyfriend girlfriend topic.
Oh, I know. I never
Okay,
thought
wait.
about that sleep deprivation.
Oh my gosh, you would not believe how often this is a thing. Or missing class because you go visit them and then you're like, it's okay if I just miss my first class.
And then they break up anyways.